Hello and welcome to a brand new season of The Mum Show, and what a season we have in store for you. But right now, make yourself comfortable, grab a cup of tea, because we're going to be talking about mum identity. Let's get started. Welcome to The Mum Show. My name's Marina, I am your host, and joining me here in the kitchen today is Pastor Claire Hooper.
Well, hello.
And child therapist Emma Brown.
Hello.
And we are so excited over the next coming months to look through all sorts of issues to do with our family and our parenting. But we're going to start off this new season by talking about our own identity as a mum and how to feel comfortable in this very new journey for some of us. This is such a great topic to kickstart, isn't it?
It's so good.
It really is. I just think becoming a mum for women, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but also the experience that I've had with working with lots of new mums, it is the biggest transition I think any woman can go through. It's just huge. I think everything changes, doesn't it? And nothing can, no amount of baby books or pregnancy magazines can prepare you for what's in store. The changes to your body, the changes to how you feel about yourself, the changes in all the kind of different relationships that you have with people, with your spouse, with your own parents, with your friends.
And you're about to be given a brand new human. And you have to work out how your thinking and your personality and your dynamics is going to operate and work in harmony with this brand new person that you know nothing about. It's quite intense when you think of it.
Apparently the physical thing's really interesting, because I read some really interesting articles recently that says a woman's DNA actually changes when she gets pregnant. So for each child that you have, you then carry them inside of you as well. And even more than that, it just alters your actual DNA. How exciting is that?
So what were the biggest things what were some of the biggest changes that you noticed when you became mums?
Well, I didn't fit into my jeans anymore, that was for sure.
Fair enough.
I hate shopping for jeans as well.
Body changes was a massive thing. I think just your whole bone structure. My feet grew.
Mine too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mine did, but they shrunk again.
It's to do with your arches. Your arches fall. That's why.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. It's to do with your bones soften and.
Yeah, and I just think, I remember distinctly coming home with my eldest from hospital, and because in the hospital you've got everybody around you, the excitement's still there, your adrenaline is still pumping, and all of a sudden you come home and there's nobody else there, it's just you and your husband and this baby in a car seat, and I was like, what do we do now? What do we do now? Literally, I had no idea whatsoever. So it is like everything that you feel that you spend so many years kind of discovering yourself, particularly through your teenage years and your 20s, and then all of a sudden, all of that almost gets lost a bit, really, doesn't it?
It's so strange. It's funny because when I was in the hospital, you both know that I'm rather clumsy. And that I bump into things. I mean, I'm covered in bruises. My phone is...
We wouldn't say that.
My phone is smashed to pieces, always. And if you put a new screen on my phone, it smashes again. And I remember holding my baby and I said to Dominic, I was like, I drop my phone about 50 times a day. How am I going to get this baby to say 2.5 without her being dropped? Like, for me, I was just like, this is the biggest challenge I've ever had. And it's like you say, the support suddenly peels away, doesn't it? You have this very intense moment of everyone wants to see the baby and everyone's excited, or for a lot of people anyway, not everybody. But then all of a sudden you go to this place where it's just like, oh.
I found the familiar places a bit difficult, places that had been familiar where I had felt, you know, even at work, I felt confident, I was an independent woman, and then even in my church experience, I was very involved and volunteering, and all of a sudden, I'd go to do things and the baby needed feeding, or I'd go and speak to somebody and then the baby pooed, and then I'd go and, you know, it just felt like, oh, this is not familiar anymore. My experience in church, don't know whether you found it, I don't know what your experience was, but I felt like all of a sudden the eyes were on me, but for the wrong reasons. I quite like being behind the scenes doing things, and I had this baby, and even that being in a church service and desperately still wanted to be in the middle of things, and my baby cried and all those eyes look at you and you do the long walk of shame to the back of the room because your baby's making the noise, or, you know, all of those things. And it's not actually, people aren't looking at you like that. They're not. Do you know what I mean? They're not. But you feel like, you just feel unfamiliar in very familiar relationships, unfamiliar in shops because you're all of a sudden in different shops. I'm shopping in a high street, you know, clothing shop, and then I'm in mother care. I'm shopping in, you know, one aisle on the supermarket, and now I'm buying nappies. It's all like a whole unfamiliar world to me. That's what I felt a little bit unsettled in, that the baby bit of it. In some ways, I almost wanted to just lock the doors, stay inside. It was just, unnerving.
I would say I did a little bit. I think I did. Yeah, definitely. I think I went to a place of, actually, my baby's really peaceful, and I think I'm just going to enjoy this peace. Like, I think I definitely went from being very, very out all the time, always with people, very, very sociable, to all of a sudden thinking, actually, I just want to get to know my baby a little bit. I just want to be at home with you. I'm just really happy to have my husband around and my puppies. And I'd built like a really small network, I think, for probably about the first 6 months.
I think that's fantastic though, Marina, because I think in our society, it's it's the expectations, isn't it? And like you said, I think when we have a baby, whether it's the first time or even the second time or third time round, it feels very exposing. I think that's kind of sense of feeling very vulnerable and very exposed to the world. And actually in our culture, I think there's a lot of pressure to just get back in your jeans, get back into your, you know, your pre-pregnancy clothes straight away, you know, get out there, start socialising, build, you know, your network, get signed up to every kind of mother and baby group, or baby, you know, baby signing, baby massage, baby swim, baby yoga. I mean, the pressure to be everything is huge. And I think for you to be able to have given yourself that permission to just bed down and just be with your baby is the most precious thing ever. I looking back now, I really wish that I'd had perhaps the kind of confidence or the courage to be able to do that, because I think the expectations that we put on ourselves, because of, I guess, how we kind of how exposed we feel in terms of society, can be actually really damaging.
And when your identity is under development, I don't want to say under attack, but when it's under in development and you are changing and you are adapting and you are growing and all of that, the tendencies aren't they, to just reach for the wrong things. So each stage of your child's life, so you've got baby, well then you become a mum of a child in preschool, and then you become a mum of a child in school, and then a mum of a child in high school, and then a mum of an adult. And you've got to be so intentional about keeping your own personal identity, who you are, whose you are, what your purpose is, because as much as that is one of the most noble things you could do, raise a child, you know, all those phrases like, who knows, you could be raising the next world, the next generation. Well, who knows, you could be that. You can't just think, you can't just suddenly leave your life behind and pour everything into your children. There's got to be space for the two things to happen congruently at the same time.
Absolutely. I remember it changing when I had a second. And I remember thinking, gosh, this is completely different. And there was quite a tussle of me trying to figure out, how do I balance this? Like, my daughter, who had been very much I've been a bit of a baby wearer. She'd been with me all the time, very, very cuddly, very engaged little girl, to all of a sudden having a second one. And I remember being really upset in the hospital because they made me stay in for so long, and I wasn't allowed to just go home. And I said to the doctors one day, I said, please just let me go home now. I've got a baby at home. And they said, no, you've got a baby here. And I was like, oh, okay, right. So, and it was really hard. And actually one of the things I found much easier was when my two kids met each other, and I could kind of include them in the journey, but we videoed it. We've got a really good clip. Do you want to see it?
Yes,
it's so nice. Right, this is the time when Lilia met Ruben, and I warn you, I do look exhausted.
So cute.
Baby arms. Baby arms. Wow, baby. Wow, look at that.
Oh, that is just so
So
adorable.
cute. But actually, it was interesting because I didn't have, we were talking about that shutdown, I didn't have that shutdown the second time round. And I actually found that when my little boy was about 3 months old, I went into a period of anxiety and I'd really taken on massive life changes just as he was born. And it was only in conversation with my sister one day, who's also a therapist, we were just stood in the kitchen, I just said, I'm anxious. She was like, sorry. I was like, no, I don't mean now. I mean, I'm really anxious. Like, everything's scaring me. Like, walking down the street, I feel anxious all the time. And we're so vulnerable at that stage, aren't we?
We absolutely are. I found that as well, very similar. And actually, my husband found that too. Really? And I think that's something that perhaps we don't necessarily talk so much about. I mean, I think we don't talk enough as women about the changes and the, I guess, the emotional roller coaster that we go on pretty much on a daily basis when we have a new baby. But for fathers as well, I think there's huge changes for them. I remember him saying that all of a sudden he was really kind of aware of how scary the world is.
Yes.
And I think that's probably about kind of wanting to protect this new baby and that feeling overwhelmed with responsibility. But I just think we need to be able to, as women, come together and talk and be honest, vulnerable with each other about these issues.
Because we're talking about new babies, but the truth is that it will all be new. Absolutely. Because every child is different. So even if you've put 7 through high school, your 8th is still going to be new because that's a new child that you're going to. And I think we've talked a lot about the physical and the biological changes that happens when we have a baby. But I think there's a spiritual change as well when God gives us charge of another life, of facilitating and parenting. There's a spiritual change that comes.
I agree.
You see, when Jesus says to John and to Mary, this is your mother, this is your son, and he makes a spiritual connection there. You know, he didn't just say, can you look after my mum? He says, right, no, this is your mother, this is your son. And I think if we're talking about motherhood, you know, it's not actually just about the baby stage, and it's not just about being a natural mother. If you are parenting a child and you have made that commitment, I believe there is a spiritual exchange that God acknowledges that and he honours that, and we start on a new journey.
Definitely.
And then you have to have the courage as each day goes forward to retain your own personal identity within each stage of those lives. Courage is the first thing you get. Your confidence grows. Sometimes people say, I'm not confident at that. I'm like, confidence grows when you do something again, time and time again. It's courage that you need. It's the bravery that you need to live free, to live yourself, to live true to who you are, to live with the dreams that you've got, to live each stage of the life that you're in, and retaining that, your individuality, retaining that is so important.
There's loads of pressures as well, aren't there, at the moment? I think we've gone through like the last 100 years have been so significant for women. And it's been really interesting for me to say, well, we've gone to the place where we've said, as a body of women, we want to be able to work. We want to be able to get paid. We want to have freedom in what we wear. We want to have freedom in this and we want to have freedom in that. But, you know, sometimes, do you know the expression, careful what you own or it ends up owning you?
Oh no, but it's great.
I think I made it up, actually.
I've not heard that one.
Marina.
I feel like it's a Marinaism. I'm just going to copyright that now because it's really wise.
Say it again, go on.
Be careful what you own or it ends up owning you before it ends up owning you. So be really careful about what you decide to take possession of. And I think sometimes in the womanhood quest for power and brilliance and this and perfection and beauty
and this, the
we
Pinterest
can end up
life.
being owned by that pressure to be everything when sometimes you just need to say, do you know what, this is not my season for beauty right now. At the moment I just need to focus on this and the rest just needs to back off, because we can become enslaved almost by everything that as women we've fought so much to have freedom in.
Yeah, I mean, I've got probably about 1,000 Pinterest pictures that I've never actually made that I probably should. And you look through Instagram and you go, oh yeah, I probably should treat my kids a bit more like that. I probably should go there. That looks like a brilliant place to go. I should probably think like this. I should use that filter. That's a really good filter. Where did you buy that top from? Oh, your children look so amazing. Oh, look at your tea time plates. They're all set out. And before long, you've lost yourself in somebody else's world. You're not anywhere near being able to be present in your own. know.
And I think that actually new mothers in this, it's even changed, you know, in the 10 years since I last had a baby. I think we are just bombarded, aren't we, with images of how to get it right, how to be better, and I think we all struggle with that kind of feeling of not good enough and striving for that perfection. And it's not only the kind of external, but it's also those internal judgments that we have. One of the struggles that I really had was about kind of my expectations of myself, and during my first pregnancy there wasn't really, I didn't entertain another option other than to breastfeed. I just knew that that's the best and that's what I'm aiming for, that's what I'm kind of going for, but I really struggled, really struggled, and I ended up having to stop, and I just felt like the worst mother in the world. I was consumed with shame and guilt about it, and it took me quite a while to kind of work through that stuff really, but it was hugely powerful for me.
Do you think at times that even made you sort of fast forward a few years, can you see how that, I suppose, those thoughts can affect how you then parent, so you don't trust your own judgment, or you don't think you're making good decisions for your kids?
I just doubted my ability to kind of bond and connect with my baby because I hadn't breastfed her, and I kind of had this belief that I'm not doing the best I could possibly do for my daughter, and therefore I failed her. And that was a really powerful message that kind of held me captive for quite a while, actually.
And that's forgiving yourself.
Absolutely,
And really, I mean, you didn't do anything wrong, but you've held yourself in captivity because you've believe you've done something wrong or wronged somebody. And forgiveness is one of the most powerful tools that Jesus gave us, well, God's given us to other people. It sets us free.
Definitely. I think I love what you're saying there as well. I don't love the story. I think it's really sad.
I do as well.
You know, what you're sharing with us there, it's also this idea that we do one thing in our motherhood and that categorises us for the rest of our journey, that brands us as a certain kind of mum. And I struggle with that, because I think God has said his mercies are new every morning. They are new every morning. We are changing. We are growing from glory to glory. We are moving on in this life. We are not staying in the same place. He is renewing. We are renewing our minds. He is refreshing us. He is building us up. And yet, if we feel branded by one thing, I am this kind of mum. And I think I often find there's so much pressure, because if you see these days, so many mums are engaged in social media. And our children become our identity. My kids are beautiful. I'd rather put a photo of them on than me. I'm like, that's loads better. But how far does it go until my kids are my identity? Or until being a... I don't know how to say it. Me being kind of like a mum, I identify, I'm the mum that's always very earthy, very placid, very free. And actually sometimes I've done things like co-sleeping. I home educate my kids, but I'm also one of these mums that's not at all peaceful at times, and it's actually all about the energy and all about the guys, come on, let's go, motivate, we need to leave the house. You know, and I don't fit into any box, because God has made us multi-dimensional. He has made us people that will make loads of mistakes. He doesn't make us make mistakes, but he's allowed us to make mistakes. He restores us when we do. And who I am as a mum at this time is not set as who I am as a mum for the rest of my journey.
It's the difference between having a fixed mindset and kind of being held captive by the labels that we give ourselves, or the lies that I think we choose to believe about ourselves, the narratives that we choose, and that forming our identity. So it's the difference between being stuck in that place of a fixed mindset and having a growth mindset where there is openness, where there is kind of opportunities to develop and grow and be something different, where we're not holding so tightly to something, that we're holding it in a much more open way. I kind of kept telling myself, particularly when I was a new mum, I'm just not very sociable. I'm not a sociable person, so I'd shy away from kind of going to all these different groups and things like that. But actually, through particularly the last 10 years, as I've now trained to be an adult psychotherapist as well as a child one, I've been through my own journey of therapy, and I feel much more kind of integrated, I guess, and less holding on to those kind of labels that I had for myself. So So now I'm able, and it's freed me up to kind of take a risk and to be brave and to have that courage to step out into social situations that have now kind of created much more fulfilling friendships and relationships in my life. It's hugely been important.
Have you found, because I know I have, one of the real keys to helping me be myself has been the friends that I've chosen. Yeah. I've been in situations where I felt like I've had to fit in. I have to adapt to fit into those friendships. I mean, they're lovely people, really nice. That's not the issue, but I don't feel I can fully be myself. I'm almost a little bit ashamed to be me, to be fully me. And I'm not condoning if you just want to go into a situation and, say whatever you want and be whatever you want. That's not what I'm saying, but there's just times when you go to places and you just don't feel like, you feel like a little bit, other people do that to you. So the friendships that I've chosen that have helped me to feel like I'm being myself have been the ones that have helped my courage grow. Do you find the same? Finding people?
Yeah, and I think actually, for me, motherhood has been a massive call for authenticity.
Yeah.
Because actually I can't tolerate anymore fake things, because I don't want my kids to be seeing that. I don't want my kids to be involved, or I don't want my kids to feel that their value is in something that isn't real. I want them to feel like being authentically who God has made them and created them to be is what we're striving for. Yeah. And actually, again, it's not easy, is it? Because all of a sudden there's huge readjustments. And I think you can't expect all that in one go. And when you look at the Word of God, the way that He, over the history of the story of the Bible, He changes in how He's related to His people. Different things happen at different times. There's times when Jesus is literally, physically on the earth, super involved, doing things, and there's times when He pulls back, and there's a time when the Holy Spirit comes. And I think, as mums, I find it helpful to say, I'm not going to have it all in one day. Yeah. I'm not going to reach a place where every burning desire and passion is fulfilled in one day. Yeah. But I can trust that God has purpose for my life that goes beyond being pushed into a corner where I'm only about allowing other people to exist. I'm more than that. I am not about someone else's existence. And I can trust that God is faithful enough and strong enough that sometimes I might feel like I'm in a desert place. Sometimes I might not have those friends. Sometimes I might not have that. But He is a good God and I'm not forgotten. Listen, we have a video from some children who are talking about their mums. Do you want to have a look?
Yes, I do.
Let's tune in and see what the kids have to say.
Mum Show Kids Action! Hello Mum, I love you. Toot-toot.
The best thing about my mum is she's always paying attention to me when I'm talking, and that I don't normally feel like I'm talking to myself.
Because she gives me cuddles all the time and she loves me and she's part of my family. She can make yummy snacks and that she's really calm with us.
What about you, Zach? What's your favourite thing to do with your mum?
My favourite thing to do with my mum is see who can stay the quietest the longest.
Probably play musical statues because she's good at it and I'm always the person who has to dance.
What about you, Miko? What's your favourite thing to do with your mum?
Bake stuff with her because I think they are yummy and delicious. That's why I think it's important to me. And I really like chocolate cake, flapjacks, and mums don't do it.
Do you think your mum loves herself?
I think my mum loves herself because she's always like, oh, I love myself. Oh, I love myself.
I think my mum loves herself because he's got a really good talent of staying really quiet, and she always wins.
If you were going to do something lovely for your mum, what would you do?
I'd buy something for her, like some chocolate, and wrap it up so it's like a present for me. I'd just give it to her for a treat. As a present, some candles, and bake her favourite cake.
I would buy her something that she would really like, and I would I would invite lots of my mum's friends over as well.
Miko, if your mum had a superpower, what would it be?
Making really yummy snacks.
A superpower of reading to me, and a superpower of camouflage.
Do you feel differently about your mum to other people?
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Because she always loves me and she's not a stranger to me. So if people are strangers to me, I wouldn't really like them as much as my mum because they're a stranger to me and I don't know them.
Well, my mum's always there when I'm having a bit of problems, and at most I don't get much things wrong because my mum's there.
Oh, they're cute. I love Freya's. I love myself. I love myself.
I know, but don't we? I just think we owe it to our children to hold on to who we are, because we are their role models, aren't we? We are, you know, if we have a strong identity in terms of who we are, and we're a bit more kind of knowing ourselves, then our children are going to know themselves, and they're going to have, you know, kind of build that confidence within them.
I'm fascinated because not one of them said anything about the balloons they blew up at a Pinterest party style thing, the outfits, the Instagram filters they used, the things that we mums at times tie ourselves up in knots, the clubs, the getting schedules right, all of that. I think you need to keep the main thing, like Emma was saying. In Colossians it says this: so chosen by God for this new life of love. And I've always used that in, like, you know, finding this new journey of mumhood. Dress in the wardrobe God picked out for you: compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, discipline, be even-tempered, content with second place, quick to forgive an offence, forgive as quickly and as completely as the Master forgave you, and regardless of what else you put on, wear love. It's your basic all-purpose garment, never be without it. Just keep those main things the main things.
Absolutely, Claire. I really agree with that one. And I think one of the other things that really strikes me from my time, not only with myself but also with some of the mums I've worked with, is how when we become a parent for the first time, I think our own kind of stories, our own histories, our own narratives of how we were parented really comes up. I think sometimes that even if we've had really difficult histories ourselves, I think when we become parents for the first time, it ignites all of that stuff again. It can often bring it up, which can be really painful. But I think in some ways, one of the greatest gifts I think that we can give our children is for us to really understand and make sense of our own histories and our own selves. And I think because sometimes it can sometimes feel like, you know, because we've experienced something, that it maybe then automatically gets passed on, but it's absolutely not the case. We can, you know, even if we've had the most troubling childhood, we can learn to break that cycle if we can learn to make sense of it, to kind of make peace with it, and to understand how it's impacted on our lives, and begin to start to kind of, I guess, make those changes. It's really, really important, that.
So useful.
It's the thing, isn't it, about grace? That no matter what's gone on and no matter where you are up until now, there is always a point where you can sit at the cross.
Yeah.
And you can say, do you know what, Jesus, I want this to look different. I want this to feel different. And that awareness you say and go into that place. It reminds me of the story of, you know, Mary and Martha. And Mary's just super busy trying to just make life perfect. And Jesus says, Mary knows where she needs to be right now. It's actually at the feet of Jesus. And it's at that place of saying, this is my connection. And all the changes we can go through, that we've got to come, and whatever our history has been up until now, that's like our place of security, our place of certainty, our source of strength. And I think we're going to talk about that a lot. I think that's going to come up over the next few months. I think that's going to be something we really get to dig into and discuss. But there's such a big place for us to go, isn't there? So much for us to talk about. Thank you guys so much for joining us on The Mum Show today. Now, if you're a new mum and you're trying to navigate church life, which can be a challenge with a baby, then can I recommend a great blog on our website written by the humorous and warm Claire Hooper, all about how to survive church as a new mum. And you can get that on our website at promisecollective.co.uk. And in the meantime, we'll see you very soon.
Hello parents, don't forget to say hello. We're at forestcollective.co.uk. Bye!